What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 32 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. I'm your host, Zach Malat. Excited again to be joined by Josh Malat. Josh, late December, all of a sudden, and free agency in the full swing of things. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I mean, the MLB offseason's in full swing. We're finally starting to see some guys get off the board and some action going on post-winter meetings. Looking forward to talking about it.
100%. Before we get started today, please subscribe below. Follow all of our social accounts. Let's get things going, Josh, with the breaking news yesterday out of the Bronx that the Yankees have acquired first baseman slash outfielder Cody Bellinger from the Chicago Cubs. In the deal, the Yankees add an additional $5 million for salary relief, and they give up a right-handed pitcher Cody Poteet, who did not have many appearances for the Yankees in the end during his career. A 30-year-old prospect in the end, the Yankees give up. So looking at this trade overall, obviously the star man there is Cody Bellinger, who is coming off a season where some people will say, yeah, the power is a bit down. Only 18 home runs, 78 RBIs, though, in 130 games. But, Josh, the average, 266. Really strong. He had a really solid season in terms of contact hitting in the end. And then when you bring in the part of the lefty bat and the short porch and right at Yankee Stadium, this is really a perfect match. The talks have been going on for a while now. Bellinger's name had been thrown out there a lot. They finally reach on a deal. And what are your thoughts on this overall for this Yankee lineup?
Yeah, we've heard so much chatter about Cody Bellinger coming into the Yankees that it got to a point where it wasn't if it was going to happen, it was when it was going to happen and which side was going to blink first. And the Yankees got exactly what they wanted. They got their guy, and Cody Bellinger is a match made in heaven for the Yankees. Obviously, this is a straight salary dump for the Cubs, looking to cut salary. A bit of a confusing move for the Cubs after they just made the Kyle Tucker trade last week. You'd think that they'd be trying to keep their guys and add to their team and compete and not give up a guy as talented as Cody Bellinger, but I mean, the Cubs clearly had a plan. They got Kyle Tucker. They didn't have a clear position for Cody Bellinger, so they were trying to get rid of him and his salary while still trying to compete. And the Yankees aren't complaining because they got their guy. I mean, Cody Bellinger is just a perfect fit for this Yankee team. You talk about a lefty bat, a guy that will definitely take advantage of the short porch, a guy that plays a great center field, a guy that also plays a great first base, is very versatile, could play all three outfield positions if needed, as well as first base. Lefty bat, contact, has some pop in there. Former MVP. I mean, this is just a perfect fit for the Yankees and just another smart move for Brian Cashman as the quest to improve the team after losing out on the Juan Soto sweepstakes continues. You had Max Fried, then you have the Devin Williams trade, and now Cody Bellinger, and it seems like the Yankees are not done. So overall, great move. Cody Bellinger, a former MVP, obviously one of the more talented players in the league, had a couple of down years and a couple of injury-riddled years, but then a change of scenery to the Cubs really allowed Bellinger to turn back the clock and look a hell of a lot more like his MVP self as opposed to his last couple of years with the Dodgers when he really struggled and was honestly one of the worst hitters in baseball, but really bounced back, became a player that more closely resembled the MVP player that he was in his early days in LA, and the Yankees are getting a great player that fills a center field void that they had. This allows them to move Aaron Judge back to right, and this really just solves a lot of issues for the Yankees and plugs in a lot of holes, all with just one move of getting Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, and Josh, obviously the talk that you just mentioned of Devin Williams as well. The Yankees have been really busy in the last week, and I mean, you got to give Brian Cashman his flowers. He has not laid down after the Soto saga, and he's realized that all that money that he was going to pay for Juan Soto and Hal was willing to pay, he said, all right, well, that's okay. We'll just go elsewhere. He's made 3 moves now, and I mean, all 3 I think have been spot on of what the Yankees have needed. You mentioned the closer in Devin Williams. Just talking about that trade quickly, Nestor Cortez, Caleb Durbin, Cash as well, and they get a lockdown closer in Devin Williams. I know the talk as well from maybe the rivals. Oh, postseason wise, he hasn't been great. I think, Josh, in 3 innings he's only pitched in the postseason. That will come, but in terms of a reliever and a star closer in the MLB, I mean that's really Devin Williams right now.
I mean, the Yankees are just going one by one and checking off all of their boxes for all of their holes that they had from their team last year. that probably wouldn't have been able to be filled had they used all that money to keep Juan Soto. And Juan Soto is obviously a generational talent, a player that the Yankees were willing to go at great lengths to keep. All the fans, the organization would have loved to have him back, but him leaving may have been a blessing in disguise. And I think I said this on the show last week as well, because now it allows Brian Cashman to go to work and have all this flexibility and all this freedom to go out and get multiple guys to fill out all the holes on, despite making the World Series last year, on what was clearly a very flawed roster. If you watch this team frequently, you saw all the holes that were on this roster. A lockdown closer to bump Luke Weaver back to setup man and kind of really bolster that bullpen and get one of the best closers in baseball. Check with Devin Williams. A co-ace to really put that rotation over the top, to have somebody to slide right in between Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon and Max Fried. Check. And now a lefty bat, a center fielder to move Judge back to right. Check. Now it seems like the only things left on the list, maybe a couple of solid bullpen guys to just add to that bullpen depth, but really the main notable things that are still on the list for the Yankees to check now is now shifting to the infield. You address the rotation, you address the main need in the bullpen and getting one of the best closers in baseball. It looks like the outfield is set. It looks like they're going to run Dominguez in left, Bellinger in center, and Judge in right. So the outfield, despite losing Soto, is looking really good right now and is a hell of a lot better defensively. And now the shift focuses, I believe, to the infield. What will the Yankees do at first base? Jazz Chisholm will probably play third or second. Who it looks like the Yankees are going to go out and get either a second baseman or a third baseman, whichever position they don't envision Jazz Chisholm playing. As it stands right now, if the Yankees don't make any more moves, some combination of Ben Rice, DJ LeMahieu, and Oswaldo Cabrera are starting at your corner infield positions. And with all due respect to those guys, I mean, DJ LeMahieu has done great things in pinstripes, was a great Yankee back in his day before he really started to slow down and injuries caught up to him. Ben Rice showed a little bit of promise in a couple of big games this past year. Oswaldo Cabrera is a great utility guy, a great bench guy to have to fill in for guys that need days off or maybe get injured. But none of these guys can be starting or can be penciled in as everyday players. Again, with all due respect to those players who have done nice things in Yankee uniforms and maybe would be good bench players for a Yankee team that intends on winning the World Series, I believe that in addition to Cody Bellinger, this Yankee team needs to add two more bats, either a second baseman or a third baseman, and a first baseman as well, and shift those guys to the bench. So, although Cashman has made three excellent moves to fill in three big holes and fill in those pressing needs, I think this offseason for the Yankees is far from over, and there's still more work to be done to get a couple of more bats for this Yankee lineup to really round out this Yankee roster.
Yeah, you mentioned the corner infield and obviously what's next for this Yankees team. And I think when you look at that, you mentioned all the guys that they could go with instead. And obviously a lot of those guys would end up just being on the bench and really just coming in on a day off for one of those guys that you end up getting. I think the big names right now, there's some really close and have been talked about a lot. One of them is Christian Walker. There's also been talks about Alex Bregman. I think Pete Alonso, you've heard names here and there, but I think that's more of a smokescreen of like, hey, well, if the Mets don't pay up, I think all of a sudden Pete Alonso is going to say, see ya, kick rocks, and I'm going to go somewhere else. And maybe I'll go to the rival. I think that'll stir some things up. But I think that's more of a smokescreen in the end, Josh. The last name is also Anthony Santander, who's been brought up a lot in recently, but that would, in the case of Cody Bellinger, probably move him towards first base instead of in center field. So I don't know if that's exactly what the Yankees would want to do. I think just focusing on getting the pure corner infielders right now and moving Jazz Chisholm to second, I think that's just the best move in the end. Moving him to second, and then you figure out third base and first base. They go from there. But of those names, Josh, that I just mentioned, who are you really looking at?
I mean, the sexy move and the move to really just stick it to the Mets that I'm looking at is, I mean, if the Yankees go out and sign Pete Alonso, I mean, that would be an incredible move. Just get another big bopper to just insert right in the middle of the lineup. I think that's exactly what the Yankees need. Get another big guy right there to kind of behind Judge to kind of stick in between Bellinger and Stanton. I think that that would do wonders for this lineup. But I think that the more likely option at first base is either Christian Walker, or if that price gets too high and the Yankees are kind of concerned with his age, maybe they look to a trade. I've seen some rumors about the Texas Rangers after their addition of Jake Berger, potentially looking to move Nathaniel Lowe, who's just a really under the radar, solid defensively, solid bat, lefty bat, first baseman. That could be a move in a direction that the Yankees look to go to. But after trading for Cody Bellinger and trading for Devin Williams, I'd like to think that the more likely scenario here for the Yankees to address first base is to just go out, use their spending power, and sign a free agent. I think that would make everybody's lives easier so that you're not at risk of giving up more than you need to, giving up another solid prospect. Because although you traded for Devin Williams after the Juan Soto trade, or after missing out on Juan Soto, it looked like the Yankees were going to go out and spend money. Devin Williams was a great move, but you gave up a guy that many people thought could end up being the starting second baseman in Caleb Durbin. So I think it would be in the Yankees' best interest to avoid a trade as far as first base goes. Just go out there, make it easy, sign one of those guys. Obviously, Pete Alonso and Christian Walker are the guys at the top of that list. And then kind of in the next tier below that, you have Carlos Santana, who's kind of getting up there in age but coming off a really good season, as well as Paul Goldschmidt, who's kind of in the same scenario, although he's just a couple years removed from winning an MVP as well. So the Yankees certainly have many, many options, whether it be free agency or trade at their disposal. It'll be interesting to see what direction Brian Cashman goes into for first base. But you mentioned it. I mean, although playing Cody Bellinger in center field really strengthens the Yankees' outfield defense, another direction that they could go to is potentially, I think the Yankees definitely want to have Judge go back to right field to kind of get him off his feet and put less pressure on him and get him out of center field, especially as he gets up there in age. Judge will be 33 next year, so that's something else to keep in mind. But another option that the Yankees could go to is, you mentioned it, move Cody Bellinger to first base and go out there and get one of those big free agent outfield bats like a Santander, like a Teoscar Hernandez, play them in left, and then hope that Dominguez can hold his own and handle center field as well. So that's another option. But it looks like I think the more likely option is the Yankees sticking with Cody Bellinger in center field, being set in the outfield and looking more toward infield additions. But adding another outfielder and moving Cody Bellinger to first is certainly another option as well. And I think the Yankees would like to have Jazz Chisholm play second base. I think that's his better position. I think that's his more natural position. I think the Yankees would be way better off defensively adding a third baseman and shifting Jazz to his stronger suited defensive position at second base. Obviously, you mentioned it. We've heard a lot of rumors about Alex Bregman. Not really many other third basemen on the market. There was a little bit of talk about the Yankees maybe being interested in trading for Nolan Arenado. That would be a similar trade to the Bellinger trade, where it would be a de facto free agent signing because the Cardinals are just looking to get off of his salary, similar to the Cubs were just trying to get off of Bellinger's salary. So that would kind of be a de facto free agent signing if they were to go out and get an Arenado. But I think that's what the Yankees are looking towards. Definitely getting a first baseman. And I think they'd like to shift Jazz over to second base, where he's better defensively, and getting a Gold Glover like a Bregman, like an Arenado, these other guys on the market would make the Yankees way stronger on the defensive side of the ball, shifting Jazz back over to second base.
Yeah. So it should be interesting. We'll see what happens with the Yankees. Obviously, the talks of Alonso, that would be a longer-term deal, and obviously some more money. Maybe a shorter-term deal when you're looking at a guy like Christian Walker, probably 3 years, maybe 4 years, and that's it. So that's something to look at, or even a one-term or 1 year like rental of Carlos Santana, where he's getting up there in age, and all of a sudden you say, all right, just come in and fill the void here for a season for us, and then we go from there. So a lot of options the Yankees could go to, and they could also go with a trade, but they are moving right now, and it's a really good time to be a Yankee fan right now. They are continuing to roll as they lose out on Juan Soto, but Brian Cashman has not taken it easy, and they introduced Max Fried earlier this morning. So exciting times as a Yankee fan. Josh, let's switch things to Queens, where it's been a little quiet, I will say. I had a nice rant on Monday's episode. Definitely go check that out. Also, go check it out on my TikTok. But I think when you look at the Mets right now, it's just very quiet since the signing of Juan Soto. They've had their options in starting pitchers, where you're looking at guys and looking at the free agent market, and they kind of miss out on it. Maybe trade market as well. Guy like Garrett Crochet, the Mets didn't really have enough to give up. The Red Sox gave up a pretty hefty haul for Garrett Crochet, something that the Mets really couldn't offer right now. They don't have the same type of farm system that the Red Sox do. And in the end, now you're looking at starting pitching saying, who's it going to be? I mean, yes, they've signed Clay Holmes. Yes, they've signed Frankie Montas. But those guys in my mind, are three, maybe four, maybe five in your starting pitching rotation. They're not two and three. So that's the problem right now for the Mets. All they really have is Kodai Senga. Yes, a guy in David Peterson as well, but that's kind of an iffy situation when it comes to Peterson. They got to get starting pitching. I mean, Manaya is still on the market. I think they're still talking to him. However, are they going to pay a bit of a bigger price for Manaya? Because Manaya had a great season last year. He's going to get paid by somebody. And if it's not the Mets, he might be okay with that because he'll get that price tag that he feels like he deserves, Josh.
Absolutely. I mean, the need for the Mets after they sign Juan Soto is clear. It's clear as day. It's starting pitching and even the bullpen too to bridge the gap over to Edwin Diaz. But the main issue for the Mets is starting pitching. I mean, the Mets lineup looks good, and the only move on the offensive side of the ball for the Mets that I could see them making is bringing back Pete Alonso. But other than that, bringing back Pete Alonso, if you're looking at a lineup of Francisco Alvarez at catcher, Pete Alonso at first, probably Jeff McNeil at second, Lindor at short, Vientos at third. Then your outfield's looking like Soto, some combination of Soto, Nimmo, Tyrone Taylor. Maybe they give Acuna a shot to earn the center field job as well. The Mets have options on offense, and their lineup after I'm going with they're going to bring back Pete Alonso. But after they bring back Pete Alonso, the lineup is looking set. The Mets' main need, you said it, Malamud, it's starting pitching. I mean, they have a lot of question marks and a lot of guys in their rotation that look more so like 3, 4s, and 5s as opposed to frontline starters and 1s and 2s. And obviously, the big name on the market is Corbin Burns. Is Steve Cohen going to go deep into his pockets and spend $1 billion this offseason by signing a combination of Soto as well as Corbin Burns and maybe making other moves as well to fill out this roster? That remains to be seen, but I certainly wouldn't rule out another big-time marquee free agent move for Steve Cohen. But yeah, you mentioned it. The Mets missed out on Garrett Crochet, but the way that the Mets are constructed both financially and the way that their team is built right now, it makes more sense for the Mets to just go out and sign free agents as opposed to give up potentially good, talented prospects or talented players that they would have to give up to get a Crochet or to swing a big trade like that. Why wouldn't the Mets go out there and sign free agents? And obviously the big name is Corbin Burns, but there are a bunch of other guys on the market as well. You look at Roki Sasaki out of Japan. He's kind of the next Yamamoto of this year, but Roki Sasaki is going to have to sign a cheap deal. I'm not really all that familiar with the rules, but he's not going to sign a 10-year, $350 million contract that Yamamoto signed with the Dodgers last year. He's going to be kind of on that cheaper rookie deal, kind of like what we saw Shohei Ohtani come into the league as when he signed with the Angels back in the day. But Sasaki's out there. Walker Buehler's out there. You mentioned their guy Manaya. He's going to get paid, but obviously there's some familiarity there, and we know that Manaya can handle the bright lights in New York and thrived and was a pivotal part of the Mets making it to where they made it last year, all the way to Game 6 of the NLCS. Certainly bringing him back as an option. Jack Flaherty was just a big part of the Dodgers World Series winning team. He's out there too. So Corbin Burns is a headliner, and I'm sure most Met fans will tell you, yeah, just go out and sign Corbin Burns, get us that ace. But maybe the better course of action is to sign two of those lower tier solid options to kind of fill out the rotation and give yourself rotation options to give yourself a starting pitching depth. Because obviously you mentioned Paul Blackburn, Clay Holmes, who the Mets envision maybe making a starter. Maybe Clay Holmes is better suited for the bullpen, and you go out and get a couple of guys that are proven starters, and Clay Holmes is all of a sudden your setup man in front of Edwin Diaz. And we saw when the Yankees shifted Clay Holmes from closer to setup man, he thrived in the second half of last year into the playoffs. So that probably would be a better course of action to move Clay Holmes, or not even move because he hasn't even started yet, but to keep Clay Holmes where he's comfortable and more familiar in the bullpen. I never really see Clay Holmes being a starter anyway. But the Mets have all these guys. Clay Holmes, you mentioned Frankie Montas, another former Yankee that we're familiar with, Malamud. I mean, just a lot of question marks in this rotation. If the Mets can fill out this gap in the rotation, sign a couple of bullpen guys, and really shore up this pitching, all of a sudden this is amongst one of the World Series favorites. But right now, yes, the Mets made the sexy big-time move of the offseason signing Juan Soto, but this is still a very flawed roster that is looking very incomplete and has a lot of work to be done in order to get to where the Mets envision themselves going, which is winning the 2025 World Series.
Yeah, I mean they have a long way to go in my mind, and December 18th, the days are kind of just trickling along. I mean they still have time, and there's still a lot of guys on the market. But as days go on, it's kind of like, all right, well, somebody's gonna sign here, somebody's gonna sign here, and you're just waiting for the Mets to kind of make a move on it. Yes, and I mentioned that it's not like they haven't made moves already, and like we're waiting for something. They've made splashes, obviously the Soto deal, but they've also gotten those two starters in their minds in Clay Holmes and Frankie Montas. But that's just the beginning, and obviously it all starts with starting pitching. We talk about that a lot, you and I, Josh, and I think the Mets really need to get a hold of that and start moving for some guys because as the days go on, more guys just will go off the market, and we've really only seen the Yankees and the Mets as the teams like willing to spend so far this offseason. But that's just the story right now. And in baseball, and obviously a long way to go. So we'll see what happens. Yankees and Mets in free agency right now. Yankees get Cody Bellinger as well as Devin Williams in the last week, and Mets continue to look for starting pitching as well as look to bring back Pete Alonso for next season. We switch things to the hardwood as the New York Knicks are in action tomorrow night. The 16-10 Knicks travel to Minnesota to take on the 14-11 Minnesota Timberwolves. Knicks come into this game as 2.5-point underdogs right now, Josh, and the total sitting at 214.5. The Knicks in this one, obviously coming off the win on Sunday against Orlando. Minnesota's feeling pretty good right now. For the last five they've won, and obviously the Knicks right now, the one disappointment has been dropping those little games that you feel like the Knicks should win. But other than that, I mean, a 16-10 record, not bad right now. They're still sitting near the top of the Eastern Conference, but this one's a tough one, and obviously maybe a bit of a revenge game for a couple of guys. Karl-Anthony Towns returns to Minnesota, as well as Julius Randle takes on his former team in the New York Knicks. So those two guys may be going at it, and we'll see. But this one should be a good one tomorrow night. What are you looking for in this game, Josh?
Yeah, juicy matchup, right? Knicks, Timberwolves obviously had the big trade. Karl-Anthony Towns, after spending the better part of the last decade in Minnesota, will definitely get a great warm reception. Those Minnesota fans love him. But you mentioned it, a revenge game for a couple of guys. Karl-Anthony Towns makes his return to Minnesota. Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo face their former team as well. So a juicy matchup between two very, very good teams, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I mean, a lot of firepower, lots of star power in this game. The guys that were traded for each other, Jalen Brunson going at it against Anthony Edwards. I mean, lots of good guys in this matchup. Nationally televised game, bright lights on TNT, late night Thursday night. This is a really, really good game. One of the better games we've seen this season. So it'll be really interesting to see, kind of what Knicks team are we going to see, right? The Knicks have had such an up and down, back and forth season. Sometimes you watch this Knicks team and you say, wow, this team's incredible. This team can win the whole thing. This team can win a championship. And then there are other times where you watch the Knicks play and you just don't know what you're watching, and you're like, how can this team contend? Changes need to be made, and then you hit the panic button. But you mentioned it before, Malamud. I mean, they're just, the Knicks find themselves 16-10, solid record, third in the East right now, despite all of these dumb losses, despite the fact that it seems like they've been leaving you wanting more. But yet here they are in this position, still third in the East, 6 games above 500, and we're still, it seems like, yet to fully see them get going and fully gel and fully get used to playing with each other with this new look Knicks team. So we'll see which Knicks team we get. Will it be the good Knicks team? Will it be the bad Knicks team? But a big thing for the Knicks has been they've been so heavily reliant on Karl-Anthony Towns. Last year, the problem with the Knicks was the non-Brunson minutes. Now the biggest problem for the Knicks has been the non-Cat minutes and their lack of big man depth, especially with Mitchell Robinson not back yet. Precious Achiuwa still kind of being eased into action. Doesn't really seem like he's fully back yet, but their lack of big man depth behind Karl-Anthony Towns, the Knicks are so heavily reliant on Karl-Anthony Towns that the non-Cat minutes have been a major problem for the Knicks. So that's something that I'm going to be looking for the Knicks. Can they perform and can they weather the storm when Karl-Anthony Towns needs to take a breather, or maybe he gets into foul trouble early? Which Knicks team are you going to get without Cat. So those are a couple of keys for what I'm looking for. But other than that, great game, nationally televised game, lots of star power between two teams that are in the thick of their playoff races, two teams that really intend on contending for a championship. Obviously, the Timberwolves won almost 60 games and almost made it to the finals last year, fell just short to the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. So the Timberwolves certainly expect themselves to get back to where they were just a year ago. But two really good basketball teams and a very juicy matchup on national TV tomorrow night.
Yeah, 100%. The two things that I'm looking at for the Knicks right now that obviously are things that they are going to have to improve as we go down the stretch and later in the season. One of them is three-point shooting because I think the Knicks, in terms of three-point shooting, they have their good days, but when their bad days happen, it sputters out of control. It's like they continue to go to that three-point shooting, even though it's not working, and they sputter out of control and end up losing games in the end. They've done that in a couple games where the three-point shooting hasn't been on. Just rely more so on your scoring down low. Rely on Karl Anthony Towns. Rely on Jalen Brunson. Drive to the basket rather than settling. And I think the Knicks do that a little bit too much in the games that we've seen losses in the end from them. And the other thing is free throw shooting. I think free throw shooting, when you look at the Knicks in their wins, their free throw shooting percentage versus their losses and their free throw shooting percentage. I mean, we're talking about games in the playoffs, Josh, that you're going to have to make free throws. I know the NBA and free throws is not something that you really, really focus on. They have to convert at the line. They have not done that well in the games that they've lost. They've shot maybe 50 or 60% from the line in some of those games, and that's just not good enough. You got to be up there in the 80s. You don't have to be perfect, but just be good enough. Especially those games where you're going to have to catch up in terms of fouls and everything. And those guys in Brunson and Towns are going to get fouled and they're going to have to go to the line. You got to convert at the free throw line.
Absolutely. Free throws are pivotal. And we've seen it a lot with the Knicks early on in the season. They've won the Knicks some games and they've lost the Knicks some games. But another key that I want to look to is what are the Knicks going to get out of their bench? I mean, Tom Thibodeau, obviously, we know how he operates. He's going to play his starters. He's going to play his guys heavy minutes. Every one of his starters are going to be pushing 35 to 40 minutes on a nightly basis. But what are the Knicks going to get out of their bench? I mean, it's just been way too spotty and way too inconsistent with the production that they're going to get out of Cam Payne and Deuce McBride when Bridges and Brunson need a breather. And then what are they going to get out of Precious Achiuwa? I know he missed some time with the injury, still kind of easing him back in there. But when Cat doesn't play, and we've even seen stretches where they've played Precious alongside Cat, what are they going to get out of Precious Achiuwa when you're giving OG or when you're giving Cat kind of a rest? And is Precious Achiuwa going to be able to handle the minutes as the five? I mean, is he able to guard a Rudy Gobert? Is he able to muscle up and guard his former teammate in Julius Randle? So that'll be something else to watch too. But I'm looking for the Knicks to get some key bench minutes when Brunson, Cat, any of their starters need to take a breath. Because obviously we know Tibbs is going to play them heavy minutes, but what they get out of Cam Payne, Deuce McBride, Precious Achiuwa, even Jericho Sims for the limited action that he sees, the production that the Knicks get out of those guys, even though it'll be a limited amount of time, could potentially win or lose the game for the Knicks because all of a sudden you're not getting production out of your bench. Tibbs is going right back to the starters, and all of a sudden they're gassed when it comes to clutch time in the fourth quarter. So the production that the Knicks get from their bench can really win them this game, lose them this game, and really the same can be said out of any other game because you don't want the Knicks, all of a sudden injuries become a concern. All of a sudden the starters become gassed as the season goes on and you get to the playoff push and you get to the playoffs. So the production that the Knicks get out of their bench is absolutely imperative for not only this game, but if the Knicks intend on getting to where they want to go so that they're not running Brunson, Cat, Josh Hart, OG, and Bridges out there 45 minutes in every single game. So bench production is going to be a big thing that I'm looking for. And can Cam Payne and Deuce McBride hit their shots and get hot when they see their limited 10 to 15 minutes of action?
Yeah, 100% agree with you. But tomorrow night, Knicks taking on the Timberwolves in Minnesota, 9:30 start. Knicks come in as 2.5-point dogs. Tune into that one. A huge game on the road for the New York Knicks. But Josh, let's finish things off today with a Thursday night football preview. It's the 9-5 Denver Broncos traveling to SoFi to take on the 8-6 Los Angeles Chargers tomorrow night at 8:15, and the Chargers come in as 3-point favorites, total sitting at 42.5. Josh, we've had a good stretch of Thursday night football games, except for last week, apparently, because we thought last week was going to be a great game, divisional matchup, Rams-Niners, and it was an absolute snooze fest. All we got was field goals in that one. So hopefully we're expecting something better here. But the Chargers come in as 3-point favorites, Josh, and they've had some injuries and still dealing with some guys. Herbert is questionable for this one, but I don't think he's going to miss a divisional matchup against the Denver Broncos, who've been feeling really good right now. And 9-5 record, nobody really expected that to start the season. Do the Broncos go on the road and pull off a nice upset here, Josh? Or are the Chargers going to handle home field and really settle things in the AFC West?
Yeah, it was a big-time matchup. Melbourne, we've had a really good stretch of good Thursday night games. We had a couple of bad ones, but all of a sudden we're on a good streak. Obviously the Niners-Rams game is not what we expected last week, but still, that was a big-time divisional game. The week before was an absolute classic with the Packers and the Lions. So we're in a pretty good stretch right now. And this is the same thing, Broncos-Chargers, big-time AFC West matchup, huge playoff implications. Both of these teams have playoff spots locked up at the moment. But the winner of this game, the outcome of this game, could really go a long ways towards shaping out the playoff picture. The Broncos look like they're in really good shape with that 9th win already. The Chargers definitely need this game a lot more than the Chargers to get to that 9th win, because all of a sudden, if the Chargers lose this game and they're 8-7, that opens the door for a couple of teams in the hunt and in the AFC to potentially catch the Chargers for that 7th and final wild card spot. But I'm going to go with the Chargers here, assuming Herbert plays, of course. I think the Chargers at home get a big-time win, and both of these teams walk out of here with a 9-6 record. I just love the way that Harbaugh's really rallied and gathered this group together. This is a Chargers team that many people going into the year did not expect to be in contention for a playoff spot after the year that they had last year. But Herbert's been playing just excellent football. Obviously, in a Harbaugh system, in a Harbaugh offense, it's going to be more so run heavy, but Herbert, when needed, he's really played excellently and has just made great decisions. I mean, you see the touchdown to interception ratio. I mean, only 16 touchdowns, but to 2 interceptions. I mean, Herbert is just proving that once again that he's one of the top 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the NFL, and nobody's really talking about him, but definitely deserves more recognition there. But I'm going to go with the Chargers, get a big-time win. The Broncos have been playing really good football as of late, but on the road against the Chargers, this is a tough game, tough environment. I'm going with the Chargers here to get a big-time win that could potentially seal their spot in the playoffs on Thursday Night Football tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, it's definitely fair. I'll take the other side. Why not? I'm gonna go with the Denver.
I always go against me, Malamud.
Yeah, that's fair. I think when you look at the Broncos, the 4-game win streak they're on, and I understand that it's against teams that are all under 500 right now. Obviously, that's a big thing right now. And looking at that, even though the Falcons are at 500 at 7-7, but you look at those games and they completely dominated them throughout. So it proves that they're still ready to go. The one thing I'll say is, yeah, Chargers have the Broncos number. Earlier in the season, Chargers went on the road, got a big win, 23-16 in Denver. But I think when you look at the Chargers in 3 of the last 4 games, lost 3 of their last 4. And I think when you look at that, the injuries have a lot to do with that. Their defense, as well as a bit of their offense. You're talking about a guy in J.K. Dobbins that really helped out this offense and was leading them behind Justin Herbert. Yes, they've picked things up in the passing game. Ladd McConkey's been excellent recently, but I just think Denver, their defense has been very strong. And I don't know how really teams can slow down this offense. Bo Nix has been really almost elite this season. He has been really, really strong in terms of the run game as well, and getting his guys involved. So I'll pick a Broncos win on the road. As for the total, Josh, I'm going to keep my streak of unders going. I love it because everybody's like, I want points. These defenses, Josh, really, really good. Divisional games usually are really tough and down to the wire. I'm going to pick the under here, and it's just going to – I like defense, Josh. I don't know if that's a big problem.
I'll agree with you about it being a down to the wire game. I think this is going to be a close back and forth game, may come down to a game winning field goal at the end between these two division rivals, but I think points are going to be scored. So I'm going to go with the Chargers win, the Broncos to cover, because I think this has kind of a field goal down to the wire type of game where maybe the Chargers kick a game winning field goal, go up 1, 2, or 3. Or in that case, that would be a push. But I've got a close game here between the Chargers and the Broncos. Chargers to win, Broncos to cover, game-winning field goal written all over this one. But I think points are going to be scored here. I think points are going to be scored. I'll take the over on this one.
Definitely fair. We'll see what happens in Thursday night football. 8:15 start, and the Chargers 3-point favorites at home against the Denver Broncos. Josh, another episode in the books. Thanks again for coming on. And obviously, it's a good stretch right now, and we love our college basketball right now, and almost getting into conference play. So looking forward to that, and obviously a lot more in MLB free agency to go.
Absolutely. Conference play in college basketball right around the corner. College football playoffs begin this weekend. The NFL playoffs right around the corner. MLB hot stove heating up. Lots of good things going on in the sports world, Malamud.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks again for coming on, but that'll do it for episode 32 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. From Josh Malat, I've been Zach Malamuth. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Friday.